Today, let's go through 3 key hand examples that will help you learn to crush small stakes poker tournaments. I'm Jonathan Little from mypokercoaching.com, and I make a point to study poker a lot, play poker a lot, but also review a lot of my hands. I discuss these hands with my friends. I run them through game theory optimal solvers. I generally use my brain and I think about various spots, and maybe I could be doing something a little bit differently from an exploitative point of view. And you need to be doing those things as well. And today, I'm going to go through 3 hands that illustrate what you need to be doing to crush small stakes tournaments. First thing is go for value. Let's take a look at this hand. Here, in this spot, we raise it up to 6,000. We are playing 1,250, 2,500 blinds. I have pocket kings about 36 big blinds deep. We, of course, raise it up. Button calls. Flop comes 5-4-4. This is a very, very easy spot to make a continuation bet. We have the best hand almost always. And on top of that, the opponent's going to have a lot of stuff they can call. If they have any sort of pair, they're going to call. If they have ace-3, ace-2, they'll stick around. If they have something like queen, jack of hearts for backdoor flush draw and overcard, they'll stick around against this medium-ish bet in position. You got to go for value. Do not get tricky. Do not check. You don't need to check raise here. Just put your money in the pot. You may say, what if they have a 4? Well, they're going to win all my money. It's okay. Sometimes you're going to get stacked. We bet. They call. Turn is the 2 of diamonds. Ace-3 gets there. 6-3 suited gets there, which they should not have. If they play the 6-3 suited, recognize they could have all sorts of other trash too, and we'll be fine. So the question becomes, how do we get all the money in by the river? I am trying to put money in. We bet 20,000. If they have an overpair, they're going to call. If they have a draw, they're going to call. If they have a pocket, if they have a pair like a 5 or a 2, they're probably going to call. Again, what if they have ace-3? What if they have ace-4? Well, then I lose. It's okay. Don't be afraid. River's the 9 of spades. Put him in. Easy all in here. I see so many players in small stakes games chicken out on this 9 of spades. Imagine it was even a slightly worse card like an 8 or a 7 or a 6, where some of the draws get there. Even on a 6 river, where there's a straight available with any 3, I'm going to be putting it in because the opponent on the button should not have very many 3s at all. So this is a spot where you cannot be afraid to go for value. And I would go for value with worse hands than kings. If I had a random 9 here, I would go for value. And you may say, what are you trying to get called by? I'm trying to get called by pocket 8s, 7s, 6s, or a 5. And that will make up some of the opponent's range, right? And you have to realize when you do have ace-9 in this spot, or queen-9 suited that decided to bluff the flop and the turn, sometimes they're going to have you beat with pocket 10s or jacks. But there aren't that many combinations of pocket 10s or jacks, and there's a lot more combinations of the underpairs and random 5s. So go for value. I shoved in this spot, and the opponent instantly called me. I actually thought I lost. He called so quick. But then he turned over pocket 7s, and I won a nice pot. Next, you need to make a point to bluff catch logically. This is something a lot of players do not do. They just bluff catch randomly. But we're going to go through some concepts to help you learn to bluff catch logically. Here we're playing 40 big blinds deep. I raise it up with ace-7 of spades. Big blind calls. Flop comes 9, 8, 2. 2 hearts, 1 spade. Opponent checks. We could bet in this spot. I think betting is reasonable, something like 3,000, but I think checking it back is also perfectly fine. We let it go check, check. Turns a 2 of clubs, the opponent bets 2,500. Our opponent is not a weak, tight player. They are competent and decent. They're not lunatics, but they're decent, you know? So, should we fold? Well, folding's probably okay, but this is a spot where there are a lot of draws available. Anytime there are a lot of draws available, you can't go around folding hands that can easily win at the showdown. And right here, ace-high could very easily be the best hand. You may say, but couldn't the opponent have a 9 or an 8 or a 2? Yeah, they could. But recognize, in this spot, we're getting very good pot odds. We only need to realize 25% equity in the pot. Notice we're putting in 25% of the money after I call. And I think we very easily will in this scenario. Recognize, you don't have to win the pot 100% of the time to call. Only 25. 25 is not a lot. River's a 3. Opponent bets 8,000 into the 10,000 pot. Now we have to win about a third of the time, more like 30% of the time, to justify calling in this situation based on the pot odds. 8 divided by 26, whatever that is. It's our 8 call divided by their 8 plus 10 plus our 8. So 8 divided by 26 is, call it 30%. Will I win 30% of the time in this spot? You may say, They could have you beat. Of course they could. But consider the draws that they would logically bet on the turn and the river after we let the flop check through. They could easily have any flush draw, almost all of which I beat. They may not value bet even an 8 in this spot, which is nice. They may not value bet a 3, which is good. Getting sidetracked here. They could also have queen 10, queen jack, jack 10, 10-7, 10-6, jack 7, 7-6, 7-5, 6-5. All those draws would very likely bet the turn, get to the river with queen high and worse, and feel very inclined to bluff. Because of that, this is an amazing spot to hero call. In the scenario, you always want to ask, like, what's the weakest hand I would call with? And in this spot, it's very important to not block your opponent's bluffs. A blocker is a card that makes it more difficult for your opponent to have the hand that you want them to have. So in this spot, what do I not want to have? I really don't want to have a queen, jack, or 10. A queen, jack, or 10 is not a good card in my hand because that makes it more difficult for them to have queen, jack, jack 10, and queen 10. Also, I really don't want to have hearts in my hand because having hearts in my hand makes it more difficult for them to have a busted flush draw, which would feel inclined to bluff. The 7's not amazing for me. I'd rather have like ace 4, I think, to call. I'd rather have like ace king because then I beat sporadic ace 4 bluffs. But in this spot, the 7's not great because I do block jack 7, 10-7, and 7-6, and 7-5, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. So in this spot, we have a very, very easy call in my mind. So look, notice I'm calling in this spot because the opponent's capable of bluffing. You know, they're not super weak and tight and passive. And also, a lot of draws missed, and I don't block any of the draws. When those 3 things are the case, you should be hero calling very frequently. I called in the spot. The opponent showed up with queen 10 offsuit. Alarm's going off. Probably have something else to do. Sorry about that. Next. You need to be cautious on the bubble. We're on the bubble of a tournament. In the spot, I have 35 big blinds, low jack, limps. This is a loose passive player. They are not doing anything particularly fancy. They are just limping around trying to see the flop. Okay? I decided to raise it up with the 8s. I think this is fine and good. I make it about 4 big blinds. Now, oddly enough, the big blind with 15 big blinds calls. That's suspicious. They probably have a very good hand. Maybe they have something like jack 10 suited, queen jack suited, king jack suited. I don't even know. Aces, kings. This is going to be a very strong range, I think. And then the low jack calls, as expected, once this player calls. Flop comes queen, jack, jack. They check to me. Easy check. This player with 11 big blinds, this board just nails their calling range. Either they have aces or kings that's not folding, or probably a queen or a jack. I'm just dead here. I'm not so worried about the low jack. Who knows what they have? Check, check, check. I'm giving up. But then we turn an 8. Again, we are on the bubble of the tournament. I really, really, really don't want to go broke right now. And notice I could. Now, very weird thing happens. The big blind bets 4 big blinds. I think they have a very good hand. I have a full house, though. I think I have the nuts. This is effectively the nuts. Notice here, yes, I lose to queens and jacks and queen jack, but I have what is the effective nuts. Low jack then calls. What's the low jack going to call with? A queen. Queens are drawing almost dead. A jack, which is almost dead. So I want to keep them in the pot. I want to do everything I can in this scenario to make my hand look as strong as possible because I think I have the super nuts. Yeah, I got to fade a queen or a jack or maybe like, I don't know, pocket 10s, like if a 10 comes, right? I have to fade a 10 randomly. But this is a spot where my opponent's going to be drawing thin or dead. Both players are drawing thin or dead, and I want to keep them in the pot. River is a 3. Big blind goes all in. I'm going to call that no problem. If the low jack just called, I would have shoved it all in. But now, the low jack raises to 350K. What in the world is happening? So, what are my options here? I can fold. Don't do that. You may say, you could be beat. Could be beat, but probably not. I could call and keep 180K behind, or I could just shove because I probably have the best hand. And this is a spot where if we were not on the bubble, I would have definitely put my money in. No problem. I'm thrilled. This is an example of a spot where going all in definitely wins chips on average because the low jack could easily have a jack or 10-9. And they're going to call off 150K more into this gigantic million chip pot with those hands. They're just not going to be able to fold, especially a loose, splashy player. However, because we're on the bubble, the play that wins the most chips definitely does not win the most money in this scenario. And I think this is actually a very easy just call with a hand that's incredibly good. Because if I call and win, I'm going to go up to, whatever it is, 1.3 million chips, which is great. If I shove and get called and win, I'm up to 1.5 million. There's not that big of a difference between 1.3 and 1.5 million. Yeah, they're both a lot, but there's really not much of a difference at all. However, there's a huge difference between calling and losing, getting me down to 185 on the bubble with 9 big blinds still, and shoving and losing and being out on the bubble and not getting a payout jump. So in this spot, I opted to just call. Big blind had pocket aces. Low jack, wouldn't you know, had queen jack offsuit. And I lost. And I was down to 9 big blinds on the bubble. But you know what? I ended up sneaking into the money. And not only that, I ended up winning the poker tournament. I ran hot, won some hands, got some shoves through. And because I kept that 9 big blinds behind in this spot that was a disaster for me, I ended up hanging around and making good things happen. And that is a vitally important skill in poker tournaments. Not going broke is very relevant, especially on the bubble. I did that amazingly well in this hand and ended up winning this tournament because of it. And I want to make sure you do that kind of thing as well. That's it for today. If you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor. Click the like and subscribe button down below. Click the notification bell if you enjoyed this video. And this How to Crush Small Stakes Tournament series. Please tell your friend. Your friend. You only have one. Please tell your friends. I know you have more than one. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Thanks again for being here. And I'll talk to all of you next time.